Well, on behalf of the board, I'm Susie Ambrose, the Executive Officer of SPB. We want to welcome you to the Stakeholder Forum on the Consolidation Plan. We're so thrilled that there's such interest in this plan. And what I'm going to do right now is just introduce our board president, Mei Lee Tom. She's going to say a few words, and we'll just go from there.
Thank you, Susie, and good morning. On behalf of the 5-member State Personnel Board, I'd like to welcome you to the Stakeholders Forum on the Governor's reorganization plan to consolidate the Department of Personnel Administration with the operational functions of SPB. You know, the board felt that it was so important to hold this forum to give you, the stakeholders, an opportunity to provide input directly to the experts who are crafting the consolidation plan. Before I do that, I would like to have a moment to introduce my distinguished colleagues on the State Personnel Board who are with us today. We have with us Ann Sheehan. Stand up, Ann. See how they take orders from the president? And we also have with us Richard Costigan. And we have with us Will Fox. Before we formally start the forum, I want to take a few moments to reassure a number of our major stakeholders who have expressed serious concern about how this merger would impact the independent role of the SBB as a safeguard that protects the merit system of state employment. The board's support of Governor Brown's plan for consolidating the personnel functions of the DPA and the SPB into this newly created CalHR agency was the result of an agreement among all parties concerned that this merger will not diminish the board's role as established by the Constitution, legislation, and case law. In fact, representatives of the administration even expressed hope that this consolidation would enhance SBB's role in overseeing the merit system. The constitutional independence of SBB is appreciated by the departments, for example, those of you represented here, effective labor organizations alike, and the board was assured that the SBB's constitutional functions will remain undisturbed. To assure this commitment, 3 key components were agreed upon by the board and the administration. 1, the board would remain a separate organization and maintain its own budget. 2, the board would retain its oversight authority over merit by having an adequately staffed audit department. And 3, that the board would retain its constitutionally mandated authority over discipline. With those assurances, the board gave its full support and commitment to ensuring the success of Governor Brown's plan to create this CalHR agency. We see this merger providing potential cost and staff savings in personnel operations, while at the same time providing more efficient services to the administration, state employees, and applicants. Now, I would like to give you the overview of today's agenda, but before that, you'll be hearing from Marty Morgenstern, our Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development Agency. I have to tell you, I have had the personal privilege of working with this man many years ago, and I was so excited to be able to work with him again. You know, he is totally one of the most well-respected institutions in this arena. I tell you, no, I have really appreciated his support of SBB and its purpose, but I especially appreciate the fact, being an old-timer myself, that his willingness to come back to public service, to be a part of this administration, is really a gift to California during these dire times. Ladies and gentlemen, Marty Morgenstern.
Thank you very much, Mei Lee Tom. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope I can live up to that long-standing institutional status that you've given me. And that really is the reason I'm I'm here. You might have noticed if you looked at an organizational chart, Cal HR, DPA, SPB, none of them are in the Labor Workforce and Development Agency. But I predate DPA. I worked for Governor Brown the first time he was governor and was hired to a newly created organization called GORE, the Governor's Office of Employee Relations. And way back then, Governor Brown had run on a promise to deliver collective bargaining for state employees, and we thought we'd get that done in no time. And actually, I think it took the whole 2 terms in office. I think we got our first, Jerry Brown signed the first state employee contract in 1982, if I remember correctly, which was his last year in office. And one of the difficulties, of course, was in order to organize, and I might say Governor Reagan had signed the collective bargaining bill for local government employees, but had been more resistant when it came to state employees. So one of the first obstacles we had was reorganizing government in such a way that the governor would have a department that could implement the collective bargaining process. And way back then, the State Personnel Board was a different board appointed by Governor Reagan, and they were who had vetoed collective bargaining for state employees, and they were less willing to have amalgamate the 2 functions. And therefore, the state ended up with 2 separate personnel agencies. The constitutional agency that's there to, and that cannot be changed or will not be changed, which protects the civil service system and the integrity of state government in that force, and the administrative. All of you from departments know and understand the difficulties that when we go to reclassify, train, hire, layoff, all of the various functions, we have 2 separate agencies that departments have to go to, and often we have the complaints that they go to one and they get sent back to the other and they go back to the other. And the main reason for this consolidation is to achieve efficiency, not just in SPB and DPA, which I think are pretty good organizations as they are now, but I think the real efficiencies that we hope to gain will be in the various departments of state government, and among the organizations that represent them will know exactly where to go, won't get sent back and forth from one agency to another. One of the reasons we're able to do this now, I think, is because it is a time of crisis and people recognize that state government has to be as efficient as possible in these very difficult times. And of course, in my opinion, the major reason is that we now have a different leadership and members in the State Personnel Board who joined with us and joined with the governor in recognizing that we could maintain integrity of government, maintain integrity of the board, and at the same time create efficiencies that will run to benefit all of us. In my agency, the Labor and Workforce Development Agencies, we have several such functions. We have a workers' compensation division that deals with workers' compensation issues, and if you have an appeal from the decisions of the division, you go to the Workers' Compensations Appeals Board, an independent board appointed by the governor with terms of office, and they hear decisions from their own division. And the same thing happens in unemployment insurance, in Cal OSHA. So this is not a unique situation in government. We hope to be achieving efficiency. We hope to save money. We hope to, as May Lee has so eloquently said, make the State Personnel Board more effective, because it's going to be right on the spot with the whole personnel system. I think we will make a more effective and efficient government, more effective and efficient State Personnel Board, and hopefully we'll be able to meet the needs of the employees and the labor organizations more efficiently also. And so that's the reason that we're doing it at this point. Before I run off to another meeting, I do have to thank some people. Ron Yank is already at the governor's office as a meeting and couldn't be here today, Director of DPA. Howard Schwartz, his deputy is, who's worked hard with this on it. All of the SPB members have been very, very helpful, and we appreciate that. Susie Ambrose, who's their executive officer, has been terrific help. Julie Lee, who will be up here later, has done all of a great deal of the real hard work on this thing. Two former DPA directors, Dave Gilb and Debbie Ensley, have worked very hard on this, and none of it would have happened without my longtime friend and great colleague, Maylee Tom. So thank you all very much. I think this panel will be enlighten you greatly on the whole process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. I call Marty the man on the run. He has the governor's ear, and he's everywhere. I'd like to now turn it over to our executive director, who will go through the agenda for today. But before I do that, on behalf of the board, I have to tell you, we've been so blessed to have this executive director who has really changed the face of the State Personnel Board from one considered sometimes not as efficient as it could be to a very efficient machine and always looking for ways to improve the State Personnel Board. And we are just so grateful to have her on board with us. Susie?
Thank you. So the format for the rest of the session is Julie Lee, who is the project manager for the consolidation plan, is going to give us a PowerPoint presentation with an overview of the new structure, the newly proposed structure. And then after that, we're going to have speakers come up to these two microphones, and we'll have a panel of folks up here, including myself, from SPB, DPA, and Labor Agency, and we'll take your comments or answer your questions, or at least take notes of them and find the answers out. And we also have index cards at the back of the room with pencils, so if someone wants to start passing those around, you can also write down your comments or questions, and we'll collect them. Take a little break after the speakers, and then we'll figure out who's going to answer each of those questions, and that's pretty much it. So we welcome your input, and we'll go ahead and have Julie do the PowerPoint.
Great, thank you. I'm assuming this is on. Yes, it's on. Okay, good deal. So what we're going to talk about today, for those of you who may not have spent a Saturday night reading the riveting information that's in the full reorganization plan, we're going to go over just an overview, some of the highlights that are in the reorg plan, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how we're managing the project itself. So as you may know, a reorganization plan has to contain certain elements. It's a formal document. And then it has to go through a submission and approval process. So this document was submitted to the Legislative Council and the Little Hoover Commission, and then in June it went to the legislature. So September 9th, as long as it doesn't get rejected, it will go into effect. And the gist of the overview of the plan is that we have a bifurcated personnel system. As everyone here has been talking about, we all know we have two different personnel systems, and that causes problems because it's duplicative and it's not efficient or cost effective. So the idea is going to be to merge the Department of Personnel Administration and the operational functions of the State Personnel Board into a single Department of Human Resources, which we're affectionately calling CalHR. And it will, of course, have the appropriate merit system protections by keeping the 5-member State Personnel Board and its staff as an independent body. Now, we know that we have an antiquated system, and since the mid-90s, we've been seeing recommendation after recommendation to streamline and improve the state's personnel functions. The Little Hoover Commission, the Legislative Analyst's Office,